god just went for a big one. The man was trapped in the newbie village for hundreds of years. Whenever he reached the 100th floor, he would be sent back to the first floor by the system. During these hundreds of years, his enemies went from low-level creatures to the mighty Gorzon who could destroy the world with a single blow. After going through thousands of clearances, his abilities have reached the peak. Monsters in the tower seemed no more than ants to him. To find some fun again, he began to play NPC roles guiding new players. Also played a coach training passing players. But every time he watched someone clear the level and leave, his desire to go home grew stronger. But on this day, the system suddenly announced the removal of the task restriction. Complete this task to clear the level. After 30 years the bug was finally fixed. Xiao Jin slowly stood up. He leapt into the air, shouted loudly, "This is really crazy." In the mini-boss fight on floor 60, the Cyclops suddenly felt the ground shaking. The next moment a figure appeared before him, rushing towards the top of the tower. He stopped only at the 99th floor. Looking at the so-called strongest boss, the Flame Demon King, Xiao Jin struck once. The top of the tower was blown apart. At this moment in the Jiangdong area outside, a portal suddenly opened. Staff immediately ordered to record the list of survivors. Xiao Jin walked out of the cave alone. Seeing this familiar yet strange environment, Xiao Jin couldn't help but smile. The person in charge slowly walked up. He respectfully said, "You've worked hard." Hearing this, Xiao Jin immediately turned his head, confirming that he had truly left the tower. He couldn't help but shout, "I've finally come back." However, the person in charge searched through the list but couldn't find Xiao Jin's name. You see, the first generation of personnel had been gone for many years. Upon hearing about the old-timer Xiao Jin's appearance, the three of them were once Xiao Jin's companions. They came this time to confirm whether the rumors were true. The hunter who had been missing for 30 years has returned. Has his strength become invincible? At that moment at the level recognition center, an A-level hunter was giving a lecture. He was explaining the rules to the 100th generation players and Xiao Jin. The labyrinth in front of them, spanning over 10,000 square meters, was filled with all kinds of traps. The time taken to clear it would determine the hunter's strength level. Soon the countdown for the competition officially began. Everyone was fully geared, waiting to set off. However, Xiao Jin calmly raised a question. "Is it correct that no matter what method I use, as long as I clear the level, it's fine?" Upon hearing this, the instructor scoffed. He saw Xiao Jin wearing nothing but slippers, not even in his combat uniform. This carefree attitude greatly angered the instructor. In response, Xiao Jin calmly replied, "I can clear it in 20 seconds. If you don't believe me, let's bet 10 million for fun." An A-level hunter had never been treated like this. He immediately agreed. 10 million is just a day's salary for me as a hunter. No sooner had he spoken, Xiao Jin arrived near the labyrinth. He placed one hand on the wall, preparing to spring into action. Suddenly a blue light flashed. A straight path was blown through the labyrinth. As the gray smoke slowly dispersed, Xiao Jin had already walked out of the maze. He then picked up his head and said, "This is the exit." The three people watching the live broadcast in the meeting room were instantly stunned. They never expected that after just 30 years, he had become a being more powerful than the gods. Among the third-generation players, a team member named Li Zan was supposed to be the center of attention. In this era of hunter rise and monster battles, he won the national fencing championship with just one sword. Everyone called him the future strongest hunter. But what he didn't expect was that Xiao Jin's appearance had ruined everything he had. Even his plan to show off in the maze was unintentionally ruined by Xiao Jin. But reality is often this helpless. There are mountains beyond mountains and people beyond people. MTC, the honor that once belonged to him was handed over in the blink of an eye. Li Zan, who had vowed to become the #1 hunter, would not give up easily. He began to plan for the next challenge. The legendary? He would find his lost honor in the next test. As long as he kills a large number of monsters in a short time, he will receive active invitations from major guilds. A bolt of lightning covered his longsword. The audience in the hall was so shocked that they couldn't speak. It was the first time they had seen a newbie who had just exited the tower use magic. They had never encountered this before. In the 2.5-minute battle assessment, Li Zan killed 20 monsters, setting a new record. This result terrified the other participants outside. But Xiao Jin was only bored by it. When he arrived at the arena with his hands in his pockets, monsters began to appear around him. Soon Xiao Jin was surrounded. When the monsters swung their clubs, the assessment officially began. Xiao Jin kicked one in the head. At the same time, several figures appeared on sight. The people outside saw the monster's head explode instantly. No one knew what had happened. The three guild leaders in the lounge immediately used magic to slow the action by 1,000 times and finally understood the secret. It turned out that Xiao Jin simply walked in front of the monster, punched it, then changed targets and repeated the action. But because it was so fast, the monsters appeared to explode as if it was self-inflicted. They had heard about a strong NPC in the tower before. Now they all believed that the guy was just Xiao Jin pretending. It wasn't until the exam's end notification appeared that the system reported that Xiao Jin had killed 60 monsters. That's 3 times the #1 record. Magic level. If he uses magic, will he become speechless? Has he only been focused on leveling up in the tower? How is that possible? This made Li Zan incredibly angry. He couldn't understand why. He had been prepared for all of this since birth. Just to become the strongest hunter. He had done it all to get everyone's attention, but Xiao Jin's appearance made him feel like a clown. Meanwhile, in the Hunter's Hall, guilds were extending olive branches to Xiao Jin. They claimed he was the country's intelligence minister, wanting Xiao Jin to join their guild. Together they could eliminate monsters and earn rewards. The signing fee alone was 1 billion. If the contract was successful, there would be 200 million in living expenses. In this regard, Xiao Jin was truly surprised. He never expected that after 30 years, hunters can actually make this much money? Even so, Xiao Jin still refused their offer. Because after leaving the tower he had already heard about the mercenary hunter profession. He preferred to go into the labyrinth alone to enjoy the rewards. And he could go whenever he wanted. If he didn't feel like going, he could just relax at home. He didn't have to listen to the guild's orders. After confirming his position, Xiao Jin went to a sushi restaurant. Across from him sat the guild leaders of the 3 major guilds. Looking at the old companions he had spent so much time with, Xiao Jin couldn't help but sigh. Brother Ishihara had turned into an uncle. The scaredy cat Jin Shishen had become so handsome. The crybaby had somehow become the president of the top guild. After recognizing the people in front of him, Xiao Jin pointed at Jin Shishen and said, "I remember you always hid behind me when we fought bosses. And Shuyan, you were so scared on floor 14 running around after a monster scared you. Now it feels like that happened just yesterday." Everyone said the reason for this reunion was because years ago you insisted on eating sashimi. Back then you even turned a monster into food. Such rumors had been circulating for 30 years. In fact, the story about you pretending to be a game NPC had already been reported on TV. Upon hearing this, Xiao Jin immediately panicked. He knew he had done many things that couldn't be exposed. If they were revealed, he feared it would lead to global disgrace. Back then, out of boredom, he took in a passerby as a disciple. He pretended to be a world-class master in seclusion for 1,000 years. He trained him based on content from novels he had read. If the disciple found out he was also a player, they would surely seek revenge. But none of that mattered for now. What mattered most was that the system had given him 3 new tasks. Only after completing them could he proceed to the unknown next stage. To find his destination, Xiao Jin met with the War God Guild, which controlled 80% of the dungeon. What Xiao Jin didn't expect was that they arrogantly said when they met, "If you don't join us, you'll encounter some accidents. There are many talents like you in the world." They brought a powerful bodyguard with them to try and force Xiao Jin to join the War God Guild. But what they didn't expect was Xiao Jin just picked up a slipper. "Seems like you haven't woken up yet. I'll teach you what manners are." Upon hearing this, the bodyguard quickly ran forward. But the next second the slipper struck his face. He slammed into the stone wall behind him. When the leader turned around, he saw only the lower half of an A-level bodyguard sticking out. At this point, Xiao Jin simply didn't hold back. He picked up the other half of the slipper and said, "Next time we meet, remember to return the pair to me. Otherwise I won't delete your weapon." After hearing that Xiao Jin taught Ares a lesson, Shishen couldn't help but feel a bit of a headache. Because one of Xiao Jin's tasks was to get control of the dungeon Adelon, which Ares owned. Now buying a ticket was impossible. After thinking it through, he realized there was only one option left. That was a true man's showdown. On the 3rd day, at the entrance to the sea-level dungeon Adelon, a female hunter pleaded with the guard to let her in to kill monsters. But the guard didn't buy it. He said, "If you want to go in, buy a ticket. Or go out with me for a while." At that moment, Xiao Jin's arrival interrupted the farce. The dungeon is public property. What right does your Ares guild have to monopolize and sell tickets? If I don't teach you youngsters a lesson, am I going to be climbing the walls tomorrow? He swung his slipper and motioned for them to come forward. The next second the slipper hit the guard's face. By the time the guard reacted, he was already lying on the iron fence. Xiao Jin's laughter came from behind, as he signaled them to take off the shoes. After putting on the brand new iron shoes, Xiao Jin was very happy. He found the shoes were light, almost as if they were enchanted. Seeing their upset faces, he couldn't bear to leave them standing barefoot. Just manage with these for now. He then went alone to challenge the sea-level dungeon. Meanwhile, deep in the dungeon, a terrifying hoarse laugh echoed. It was the final boss of the dungeon. Behind him, 3 people were waiting for him. They had also come to attack the dungeon. But unfortunately all three were weak. They kept hesitating whether to enter. He walked confidently to the monster's front. The boss had lived for so many years, but had never seen anyone so arrogant. Before the monster could get angry, Xiao Jin punched it directly. The dungeon boss died on the spot. The three people stared dumbfounded. Soon after this incident completely enraged the War God Guild. The War God Guild prepared to eliminate this old-timer. They contacted the guild manager. He looked at the data, and confirmed it. He couldn't believe it. A newbie just out of the tower actually had 2 A-level attributes. Although he was very talented, since he was an enemy of the War God Guild, they wouldn't go easy on him. Besides that, 2 years ago, they had a stronger enemy. It was a new guild called Dominance. It had only been established for 2.5 years, yet it already controlled 50% of the dungeons in Country C. And their guild leader had only been out of the tower for 4 years, but had already developed Dominance into a major guild. All the members he led were monster-level strong. Therefore they attracted a lot of attention. On the other side, Xiao Jin was surprised when he returned to his place. His pager from 12 years ago had turned into this? It was specially bought for contacting him. Shi Shen, although he knew Xiao Jin had been locked up for 2 years, was still speechless. Is this really necessary? Isn't it a bit much? Anyway, Xiao Jin played mobile games for 3 hours. This made Shi Shen a bit of a headache. He then talked to Xiao Jin about the forest tribe's information. Although this dungeon was managed by his guild, there were no bosses left in it. Because a few weeks ago he heard this, his smile gradually faded. No bosses? Then there's no way to complete the task. Normally, all the monsters in the tower are reset every day. But there is a difference in reality. Although the respawn time for regular monsters is the same as in the newbie tower, bosses are not like that. They need some time to respawn. And the respawn time varies across different dungeons. For example, the forest tribe takes a month. However, it's been 4 weeks since the last boss kill. Hearing this, Xiao Jin sighed with relief. He then asked about the swamp dungeon. But that was Ares Guild's dungeon, and they hadn't shared any information. Every 2 or 3 months Shi Shen asked about the Hunter Association registration. When he found out there was money to be made by registering, Xiao Jin immediately got interested. As an A-level full-time hunter, Shi Shen earned 700 WA a month. As a money-loving person, Xiao Jin without any surprises went to the Hunter Association Hall the next day. At the entrance the staff noticed his impressive physique. They asked if he was the old-timer from 2 years ago. When they found out it was him, they were slightly displeased. Is it really necessary for so many people to inquire about his information just because his test scores were a little higher? Once the information was confirmed, the test began. This is the Explorer's Eye. By holding it one can see their own level. As the level analysis began, the administrator thought to himself, a newbie just out of the tower will only be at best B level. But the next moment left him gasping in disbelief. This is absolutely impossible. The old-timer trend continues. FX the old-timer was trending again. Not only that, the top 3 trending topics were all about him. It was because apart from lacking magic power, his other attributes were all A-level. This made Xiao Jin feel a bit down. What happened to this world? I go for a walk and now even the cats and dogs know about it. Shi Shen wasn't surprised at all. After all, it's normal for a popular person to trend, especially with the Adelon Research Institute dungeon incident. Everyone is paying attention to your relationship with the War God Guild. Everyone is paying attention to your relationship with the War God Guild. I'm sure, knows the results of today's test. Looking at this carefree guy, Shi Shen felt like he might be worrying too much. At this time inside the Ares Guild, someone was troubled by the old-timer's situation. The guy with yellow hair, seeing this, tried to comfort him. He's just a small fry, and the person who's going to deal with him has already been chosen. That person is going to be Shen Tianzheng, who is about to become an S-level hunter. This shocked him a little. An A-level peak fighting an A-level newcomer. It looks like he's as good as dead. The next night, Xiao Jin arrived at the Forest Tribe dungeon ready to fight the boss. For safety, Shi Shen gave him a map. After all, he had seen too many people get lost in the Forest Tribe. Xiao Jin looked at it carefully, but he found the map completely incomprehensible. So without hesitation he threw the map away. This left Shi Shen in despair. When they reached the center of the forest, a large tree in front of them was the key to starting the boss fight. Xiao Jin began charging his energy. He gathered energy in his body. Then he released it toward the front. Wherever it passed, not a blade of grass was left. As the obstacles were cleared, the forest tribe's 2-headed ogre appeared before him. Facing the ogre, which stood over 100 meters tall, Xiao Jin, wearing his slippers, charged up and jumped. He landed on the ogre's back. With a powerful kick, the 2-headed ogre died on the spot. Shen Tianzheng, although confident he could kill Xiao Jin, he was here to gather intelligence, so he didn't take action. After returning to the guild, He began reporting the situation. This old-timer is indeed a freak. Without magic power he can still destroy dungeon bosses using just his physical strength. But I also found Xiao Jin's fatal weakness. I'm preparing to kill him in the next swamp dungeon. The next day Xiao Jin dealt with the ogre. Then he met with Shuyan. Shuyan immediately asked why Xiao Jin insisted on going to Ares Guild's dungeon. You know the Ares Guild is a tough opponent. But, because of the special system task, since the timing wasn't right, Xiao Jin found an excuse to brush it off. Although Shuyan had already heard about Xiao Jin's ability, she still couldn't help but worry about his safety. Seeing her persuasion failing, Shuyan reluctantly reminded him. Xiao Jin remembered to finish quickly. It's best not to cause any trouble with Ares people. Seeing how worried Shuyan was, Xiao Jin didn't say much. Even though he agreed not to cause trouble, he definitely wouldn't keep quiet. Next day Xiao Jin arrived at the final dungeon entrance. To make things more natural when it came to fighting, he didn't immediately attack. As expected, he angered his opponent with his words. He charged at Xiao Jin with a big sword. After a huge roar, the world returned to silence. Xiao Jin swaggered in. Soon, he arrived at a small creek. There a giant creature from the water attacked him. This giant crocodile was the boss of the swamp dungeon. Xiao Jin immediately recalled what Shuyan had said last night. The swamp dungeon boss's armor was invulnerable. But that didn't matter to him. He remembered one key point. The crocodile's body was valuable. Without further ado, Xiao Jin kicked the crocodile. Hurry up, finish it and go sell the skin. The crocodile with its tough skin didn't die immediately. It turned to flee. Seeing this, Xiao Jin was excited. Finally a fight he could enjoy. He grabbed the crocodile's tail and performed a Thomas spin, then threw it against the rock wall. Once the smoke cleared, Xiao Jin thought the crocodile would be unconscious. But to his surprise, the crocodile shed crocodile tears. The next second it unlocked its berserk form. Just as it charged at Xiao Jin, Shen Tianzheng hidden in the shadows made his move. Magic chain bound the crocodile's legs. This made Xiao Jin realize something was wrong. Luckily he managed to brace himself with his hands, avoiding the crocodile's strike. The crocodile, unable to stop itself, crashed into the water. As Xiao Jin wondered what this thing was, Shen Tianzheng hiding in the shadows jumped out, revealing his plan. You'll die knowing exactly why. This magic chain was specially prepared for you. Seeing this, Xiao Jin understood that this was an assassin sent by the Ares Guild. His enemy saw that Xiao Jin was sitting still, and assumed he had given up. He told him, although your strength attribute is powerful, this is a magic chain specifically designed to counter you. Out of curiosity, Xiao Jin tried to break the chain with both hands, but he found he couldn't break free. The magic chain, as the name suggests, could only be broken by someone with more magic power than the caster. Since Xiao Jin had no magic power, he couldn't break the magic chain. But Xiao Jin didn't think he was in danger. This angered his enemy, to not even realize you're about to die. He then drew a magic sword from his back, and prepared to tear Xiao Jin apart. Seeing this, Xiao Jin didn't dodge. He just raised his hand to block the blade. Seeing the stalemate, Shen Tianzheng activated his poison skill. After a loud explosion he smiled confidently. Such a violent attack, even he himself wouldn't survive. But to his surprise, Xiao Jin seemed unaffected, still sitting there dazed. This caused Shen Tianzheng's mental defenses to collapse. Unconsciously he stepped back. This guy is definitely a monster. The next second a fist as big as a sandbag appeared before him. He was sent flying into a tree. Seeing that his enemy was still alive, Xiao Jin walked over to him. As his enemy lay severely injured, the magic chain began to lose its power and disappear. Xiao Jin then kicked the dry tree down. He picked up the tree trunk and walked to the riverbank. There he found the crocodile's treasure. When the dry wood hit the water, it created a huge splash. And as expected, the two were done for. With the crocodile boss's death, Xiao Jin successfully completed the task and gained basic permissions. After returning home, Xiao Jin lay on the sofa nervously waiting. Soon the information panel popped up on its own. He had gained the unknown lowest permissions, and also earned the title of temporary guardian. Then a prompt appeared saying that in 2.5 hours he would receive a system invitation. System invitation? Could this be a meeting with the mastermind behind all of this? After waiting for 2.5 hours, the world suddenly went completely dark. When he opened his eyes again, Xiao Jin found himself in a strange room. Sitting in front of him was an unfamiliar woman. Nice to meet you, temporary guardian. I'm your assistant. From today on we'll meet often. Hearing this, Xiao Jin couldn't help but smile. Perhaps this person could answer all his questions. Who exactly locked me in the tower all this time? The two of them then silently stared at each other for a while. Seeing the woman silent, Xiao Jin asked, "Don't you have anything to tell me?" But the woman looked confused and replied, "What do you need me to tell you?" Hearing this, Xiao Jin could no longer stay calm. At this moment the woman continued, "I can answer the questions you ask. This made Xiao Jin very speechless. Why didn't you say that earlier? He then asked who locked me in the tower for 30 years? Hearing this, the woman froze for a moment. Then she said, your permissions are too low. That's why I can't answer this question. Xiao Jin then asked many more questions in succession. But without exception the answer was always the same, permissions too low, unable to answer. Xiao Jin, frustrated, punched her. Did you call me here just to be a riddle master? This joke isn't funny. The woman angrily slapped the table and said, it's your own fault. What does that have to do with me? But Xiao Jin didn't care about that. To ease the tension, the woman told him, only if you get promoted to a full-time guardian will the information you want to know be more detailed. Hearing this, Xiao Jin thought it might be worth it. Do you have more important information? Like how to become a full-time guardian? At this, the woman slowly said, 5 days from now. 5 days from now this city will open the ice rift. At its deepest point a key will appear. As long as you successfully obtain the key, you can become a full-time guardian. Then Xiao Jin's status panel added a new task remaining. Although he didn't know what would happen, he had no choice but to follow the prompt. The next day, to learn more about the ice rift, Xiao Jin found the 3 guild leaders. He learned that the ice rift refers to a huge crack appearing on the ground, from which monsters will continuously emerge. It also has another name, Hell's Entrance. Recalling Abu's nonchalant tone, he really wanted to punch her again. This is a catastrophic disaster. Then Xiao Jin casually said, if the ice rift appears in our country, do you think you can defend it? Defending it is no problem. But even a sea-level ice rift would leave the city barren. And at that time, the Ares Guild definitely won't cooperate. They'll just send out small fry. It seems that one day the Ares Guild will disappear. Xiao Jin said it was time to rest for 4 days. After that I'll need everyone's help. 4 days later at Luko Airport, magnitude 9 earthquake hit. The ground shook violently. A huge rift appeared in the ground. At a roundtable meeting in another dimension, a man in black was reporting the situation on the 9th floor. The person has successfully awakened from the tower. Although he hasn't fully awakened yet, soon he should have his own position. The leader here was very much looking forward to seeing how far this guy could go. I hope you pass this test. The ice rift's appearance has turned Luko Airport into a hell on earth. Although the country has sent many hunters for support, the monsters keep pouring out, making the situation worse. More and more monsters keep appearing. Some of the hunters are already pale. How can we possibly win this disaster? This handsome guy is even screaming for his mom. Just when things seemed dire, he was successfully rescued. His teammates quickly killed the monsters. But that changed nothing. The monsters kept coming. The endless hunting made the old hunters despair. If this keeps up, we'll all die. Behind them appeared a giant skeleton warrior. And just when things couldn't get worse, another wave of monsters appeared carrying 8 soul bones. The giant skeleton raised its big mace and charged. The captain tried to block the hit with his shield, but the mighty blow sent him flying. He crashed heavily into a car. Even so, the skeleton monster wasn't done yet. The huge club swung down again. Just then Xiao Jin appeared wearing his signature sportswear. With one kick he instantly killed the skeleton monster.